Hey folks, welcome to ADSR. I'm Stephen Ellestad. Make sure you subscribe to the ADSR YouTube channel. Follow on social media. So a while back I had reviewed a plugin called Mix Checker by Audified. It was a really cool way of checking your mix against different types of EQ curves that represented typical listening environments. And following up on that, I kind of looked into more of what they offered. And one of the cool things that they have recently put out there is a suite or a collection of plugins called the STA Effects. STA stands for Summing Tube Amplifier. And it's a really cool suite of plugins that are all based around the idea of adding different types of energy from, say, a tube amplifier, and then pushing and modifying the signal, adding harmonic content and shaping the sound. Not only is it just your typical console emulator, but there's a number of different versions in the collection. In here we have a chorus, a delay, an enhancer, a flanger, phaser, and preamp version. So all these, they all have this tube stage, and you can choose different tube models and adjust how much of the signal is pushing into it. But at the same time, you can also use some delay effects and some time-based modulation effects. Some really cool stuff. So over the next couple tutorials, I just wanted to take a look at the Audified STA series and give you an idea of what they're about, because I found them to be a pretty nice collection of ways to add energy and warmth to different tracks, but also have some creative possibilities as well. And so in this first tutorial, we're going to look at the enhancer and the preamp, which are strictly kind of harmonic and saturation-based channels. And so currently, I've just put together this little, simple little groove. So nothing fancy at all, but you get the idea. And I've inserted on here the STA Enhancer. And let's turn that on and just hear what we got. So there's definitely a warmth and a richness, kind of a bit of a three-dimensionality that shows up there. So let's start by taking a look at what the enhancer is. So it's modeling a tube amplifier. As with most tube equipment, the input level, how hard it's hitting the tube stage, and then the amount of saturation and level out, all of these kind of combine to determine how hard those tubes are being pushed and how much it shapes the sound a little bit. And this is going to be common on all the STA effects. And we can choose a couple different models. We have a presence mode, we have a vintage, brown, white, and lo-fi. Now the different plugins also all have different sets of controls over here, but they all share this input, tubes, saturation, and output. And we have a bypass right here, and we can hear that bypass again in action. Definitely warms up, rounds up that signal. I don't think it gives you a finished signal, but it adds energy and warmth. And I like that and the ability to shape how much of that we have. Currently we're just getting some tube character, but not a lot of saturation and additional, odd and even harmonics. But as I bring up the saturation knob, you can definitely hear something. Here we're currently only processing the low end. I don't actually know what the crossover frequency is, but it's just a low process and a high process. And we can definitely hear the high end, say, as I continue playing and then manipulate the high process, we can definitely hear that high end warm up and become a little more present. A lot of nice variables and ways to push against that sound with the enhancer. So similar to the enhancer, we also have preamp. And the preamp is an even similar version. So let me make these guys a little smaller. I've got this applied to the shaker, but we can see that we have a similar set of controls here. And this is our visual display telling us what's happening, giving us our percentage of saturation, our input and output in dB, what mode we're in. But over here we also have our tools, calibrate and set the UI color, etc. So you can actually shape But we can store a preset right there, and we can load. There's just a couple of presets in each one, but they're pretty effective. So on this one, I've got this, and we'll solo out that track. One thing I like about this is we're just working with VU meters. We can see how hard we're pushing them, and we can kind of use that as a visual indicator without getting sucked into a big, immersive, more modern digital interface. Let's just bypass this and hear what the preamp does. So preamp, bear in mind, is shaping the tone before it hits your console or your workstation. So it's more of a character shaper than a in the mix shaper. It kind of is more of setting up your tone. And I found the preamp actually sounds really nice on, say, a bass guitar, on piano, and it worked really well on percussion elements just to bring a little bit of three-dimensionality, and character to them before I started doing mixing tricks and all kinds of tools to them. So here's that shaker bypassed. So kind of subtle, and if I push this a little harder, maybe up the saturation and bring my level out down, definitely a meat and a weightiness to it. It certainly brings a lot of character. I don't know that that's a character that would fit in a full mix, but certainly as a starting point, it gives you a lot of options. And that's one of the ways I like to use a preamp in general, is to develop a tone coming into the console or into the DAW that will be the most useful for what I'm trying to do with that project. So that's a look at the STA Enhancer and Preamp from the Audified Summing Tube Amplifier series. And then coming up in my next tutorial, I'll take a look at some of the modulation effects, including the delay, the chorus, and the phaser. Thanks a lot. I'm Steven Ellestad for ADSR. Make sure you subscribe to the ADSR YouTube channel, follow on social media, and we'll see you next time.